I'm crying because I'm like, this stupid app is telling me that I cannot eat any more food. Like, how? Hello everyone, welcome back to Hadley's High Carb Kitchen. My name is Hadley and I started this channel in an effort to combat low calorie diets and calorie restriction. But yeah, today I wanted to talk about something that's highly debated, and that is calories in versus calories out. Okay, so where do we start with this even? I guess I should start by saying I do not subscribe to calories in, calories out. I don't think that a calorie is a calorie. I do not think that a calorie is created equally, and I will get into why I believe this in this video. Okay, so first of all, I want to talk about my results in the past. So there has been a time when I was eating a very meat-heavy diet, where I was eating kind of like a low-carb diet, and at one point I was eating somewhere around like 2,500 calories in an attempt to gain muscle and to get really lean. Full disclosure, I never got lean doing that. So if I can figure it out, I will post a picture of myself here when I was lifting weights really heavily and I was eating a very protein heavy diet and eating like around 2,500 calories. I was not lean. I had a bit more muscle than I do now, but it was definitely covered in like a layer of a little bit of softer look, I guess I'll say, than I have now. So right now, I actually eat more than 2,500 calories on a daily basis. I'm eating like anywhere from 2,500 to 3,500. It really just depends on what I'm doing that day and my hunger levels. And as you can see, I do not have a weight problem. I'll step back here. You can see perfectly fine. Not an issue at all. And do I worry about calories? No. You'll see me post calories in my videos or in my shorts, in my what I eat a day videos, because I've gotten a lot of requests of people asking, well, how many calories is that? Or I want to see the breakdown, all that. And I've also had people accuse me of not eating at all. They're like, oh, well, you're barely eating. No wonder you're thin. It's like, no, I eat. I eat a lot. I eat a lot more than most people do. And why can I do that? It's because I eat a high carb, low fat, plant-based diet. And I know that kind of sounds contradictory to maybe what you've heard, like carbs make you fat, carbs make you fat, carbs don't make you fat. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some science and a little bit about why carbs don't make you fat and how they actually help you lose weight. And I've talked about some of these points before in other videos. So the first thing I want to talk about is so if I was to eat, you have to think about it this way. If I was to eat say 3,000 calories in McDonald's versus eating the 3,000 calories a day that I do most days in fruit, vegetables, and starches and sugars, I would have a completely different aesthetic. And I know that's for a fact. I've worked at McDonald's in the past. That was my first job, and I did indulge in some plant-based foods, in some fast food in the McDonald's. And I had this issue, and even though I wasn't even, well, I don't know how much I was eating. I didn't track my calories back then, but I tried to restrict my calories as much as possible, and I was constantly on my feet, because if you've ever worked in a restaurant or in a fast food restaurant, you'll know that you're constantly running around doing stuff, like burning tons and tons of calories. But my thighs were constantly rubbing together. It was super, super uncomfortable. And in that picture that I showed previously, where I'm eating more of a high protein, high fat diet and exercising 1 to 2 hours a day and still not getting the results that I desired, I was very stingent back then about my calories, tracking my calories. Like, I even had a scale where I would weigh all of my food all the time. And I did not get the same results then that I do now. And even back then I worked in a lab where I was constantly, unless I was doing data entry, which was very rare, I was on my feet. I was running up into wards, taking blood samples. I was cleaning incubators and refrigerators and all that kind of stuff. Like, I was constantly doing stuff. I worked a very active job on top of my 1 to 2 hours a day of going to the gym, and I was still not as lean as I am now. And I was very stringent about my calories, and now I track my calories. But I mean, and the other thing is like, there's no way of, I say this, but there's no way of like really knowing how many calories you're intaking. Like you can get like a rough guesstimate of what you're intaking, but you're never going to fully know exactly what you're taking in, which is another reason why like counting your calories and calories in versus calories out really isn't going to work for you, because like you don't know exactly what you're taking in or what you're expending, you know, like you have no idea. And it's impossible to know unless you're like eating straight up oil or straight up sugar, or you're eating something that's very, very, very processed and packaged. And that was the other thing when it came to me counting calories, is that I found myself avoiding whole foods more because I was like, well, I don't know exactly what's in this. I need this package or this processed thing. I need the breakdown. I need it to tell me. I need to scan with my app in order to know exactly how many calories I'm intaking, or this is never going to work. So I mean, that was another thing about tracking calories. Like I ended up eating things that you know, probably were not so healthy, and super high in fat and super processed. Not that there's anything wrong with like the occasional processed food, but like, you know, you're intaking that because you want to keep track of your calories more accurately. And that's a better way to do it than like making, like, say for example, like a chili or something where you're throwing a bunch of ingredients in. It's like, how do you accurately measure that if you could accurately measure that? Anyways, I'm kind of going off on a tangent. So what I'm trying to say is that calories in versus calories out, just, it's a pain in the butt, first of all, to track, and second of all, it's never accurate, and thirdly, it just it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense when you realize how carbohydrates are kind of processed in the body versus how like fats and proteins are kind of processed in the body. So, or like even like the amount of fiber that you're intaking, because fiber literally escorts calories out of the body. Like it's just, yeah. So I wanted to talk about, again, I'm always talking about Dr. Neil Barnard's book, the Turning Off Your Fat Genes, or Turning Off the Fat Genes, because it's a really great resource, and I've been really like into reading it right now. So so in this chapter about burning fat, he talks about, here, I'll just like hold this up, story time with Hadley here. So focus on two things. You need glycogen building food, which means those high in complex carbohydrates, and it gives you a good after meal burn. So what he's saying here is that the more carbohydrates you intake, or the higher carb diet, the more your after meal burn is. Like, and he gives an example here of the study where researchers fed a high carb, very low fat diet, 80% of carbohydrates, 9% of fat, to a group of young men, and they found that their after meal burn response to a test improved substantially in a matter of days, raising about 60% higher than those who had been on a high fat diet. So it's saying that basically, if you, like, carbohydrates react differently in your body. You start to burn calories more efficiently and more effectively after you've intaken a meal when you've had a high carb, low fat meal, as opposed to high carb, low fat meal, as opposed to having a high fat meal. Okay, so, and another thing is your hormones. Your hormones play a huge role in how efficiently your body can burn fat. Like I've talked about previously, if you are insulin resistant and you have insulin just hanging around trying to push that the glucose into your cells, or the sugar into your cells, you are not burning fat. You do not burn fat when that process is happening. So if you are insulin resistant, insulin is a hormone, you are not going to be burning fat as efficiently as someone who has really good insulin sensitivity. So that's like another factor. You think about women who get put on birth control. A lot of the times they end up gaining weight because they're being put on hormones, or guys who are taking testosterone in order to like gain muscle and gain weight, to have that more like built, like, muscular look. They're intaking hormones again in order to get their body to look a certain way. So for someone, this is why when people are like, eat eat less and move more is just kind of silly, because it's not as simple as that. And your body processes carbohydrates versus high fat foods way differently. Your body just processes them differently. And for someone to say, oh, it's just calories in, calories out, like you need to eat less, it's so silly. And it doesn't make any sense to me, or to a lot of people. What you need is a fat deficit, not a calorie deficit. When I am doing cardio and I'm burning calories, I look at those calories that I'm burning, which again is not accurate. The machine cannot tell you exactly what you're burning at those times, or a watch cannot tell you what you're burning at those times. So I look at those calories and I think, okay, well maybe I know that I'm doing this like intense exercise, like this says that I've burned this many calories, I need to make up those calories. I do not look at that and go, okay, I am now putting myself in a calorie deficit. Because putting yourself in a calorie deficit is setting yourself up for a binge, in my opinion, in my experience. So in the past, when I have undereaten and I haven't taken in enough calories, and I worked for a little bit, it worked for a little bit, and I was like, oh, I'm looking so lean and so whatever. But a lot of the time when you're starving your body, it's water weight and glycogen that you're losing. It's not actual fat, because you can't, it's not, I mean, you might lose a little bit of fat, but like it's really hard to sustain that, and you end up binge eating, which is what I used to do. I've talked about this in a previous video where one Christmas I was restricting, and then I went and then there was like all these desserts, and as you know, I am a sweets girl. I love the sugar, I love the fruit, just give it to me basically. And I ate like, I don't even know, like 20 like desserts in one sitting. It was insane, and I felt terrible and guilty and awful afterwards. Or the other time when I went for like a 20 to 40K bike ride around the city I was living in, and I came back and I like smashed almost an entire bucket of KFC chicken. It's like that kind of thing. Like there's only so much sustaining or quote unquote willpower that you can have in order to keep yourself in that deficit. And that's why you'll notice people who are in a calorie deficit or try to push a calorie deficit, their weight goes like this. Like they go up and down, because it's not sustainable. And you can't keep that going long term, because you're just gonna like burn out, you're gonna be hungry, you're gonna just like binge out, which is exactly what happened. Or your body slows down your metabolism because it thinks that it is in starvation mode, and it's trying to preserve energy so you don't die, basically. When you start, of course, eating again, you're probably going to end up putting on more weight than you had previously lost, because your body is like, okay, well, you got access to food again, so let's store as much of this as we can, because we want to be prepared the next time we're in a famine. And that's exactly what happens when you crash diet and you try to restrict your calories and do this calories in, calories out stuff. And honestly, weighing and measuring your food is just freaking miserable. Like I said, I've done it in the past, and it's just like, it's all consuming. And don't you just want to be able to eat freely and excessively, and eat in abundance and eat as much as you care for? This is why I think it's funny when people say that eating high carb, low fat is some sort of an eating disorder. And I realize that it's very different from what everyone else in the world is doing, basically. But it's so freeing. Like, I can't even explain to you how freeing it is to be able to just like sit down to a meal and not be like, oh, okay, well, I can only have this many calories, or I can only have this many carbs, or like, that kind of thing, and just eat. Because another story is, I remember I was doing like this, I think it was called If It Fits Your Macros back in the day. And I remember running out of carbohydrates, because my carbs were probably generally low. I don't remember my macronutrient breakdown. I know that it was higher in protein, higher in fats, lower in carbs. And I remember like being so hungry because I either ran out of carbs or ran out of calories, and I'm just like crying. I'm crying because I'm like, this stupid app is telling me that I cannot eat any more food. Like, how insane is that? Like, your body knows. Your body is a smart entity. It knows when you need to breathe, it knows when you need to sleep, and it knows when you need to eat. So making yourself purposely into a calorie deficit, it's going against what your body wants and what your body needs, and it will get what it wants eventually. And again, I talk about this in the terms of like, your body doesn't hate you. It's literally just a survival mechanism. Like, your body doesn't want you to die, and it doesn't want your systems to shut down, and it doesn't want your normal functions to shut down, which is what will happen if you do not eat enough calories and you are not properly fueling yourself. So this is why I don't think calories in versus calories out is very accurate. One, you can't accurately track your calories. Two, you just it's going to make you miserable. And three, calories are not created equally. I'm gonna include a clip here with Dr. Greger talking about a Vermont prison study where they overfed prisoners.
Pounds on a regular diet took about 140,000 excess calories per a certain amount of body surface area. To get the same 30-pound weight gain just by adding fat to their diets, all they had to do was feed them about an extra 40,000 extra calories. When the extra calories were in the form of straight fat, it took as many as 100,000 fewer calories to gain the same amount of weight. A calorie is not a calorie. It depends on what you eat. In this case, lowering fat content effectively made up to 100,000 calories disappear.
Okay, as you can see in the video, Dr. Greger also agrees that a calorie is not a calorie. It really depends on the source that it is coming from. When they were fed a high-fat meal plan, they ended up gaining weight on fewer calories. So, tell me your guys' thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe in calories in versus calories out? Leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take very good care, and bye!